In the deep quiet of the Batcave, a single, jarring sound echoed. Not an alarm for a supervillain, but a cheerful electronic chime. On the Batcomputer's massive screen, a message flashed in bold, bureaucratic letters. Official Gotham DMV, mandatory operator licensing alert. Alfred Pennyworth, holding a silver tea service, peered at the screen over his spectacles. "Sir," he said with a perfectly level tone, "it appears you have received an electronic summons. It seems quite insistent." Batman emerged from the shadows, his cape swirling around him. "What is it, Alfred?" "The Riddler, Penguin." Alfred cleared his throat. "Worse, sir. It's from a Ms. Mildred Thistlethwaite, the new Transportation Commissioner." Alfred read the regulation aloud. "All non-standard high-velocity, unregistered operating vehicles must be operated by a licensed driver who has passed a standard road test." Batman's jaw tightened. He had faced down gods and monsters, but had never been so enraged by a piece of paper. The regulation was absurdly specific, with subsections and clauses that seemed written with only one vehicle in mind. It was a perfectly legal, bureaucratic trap. "The solution is simple," Batman declared. "We will send a proxy." He spent an hour programming one of his advanced androids, dressing it in a bland sweater and slacks. At the DMV, the android sat perfectly still in the driver's seat. "Name?" asked Mildred Thistlethwaite, clipboard in hand. "Unit 734, it replied in a monotone. Mildred frowned. "Invalid response. Test terminated." "Plan B," Batman grumbled. Robin appeared, wearing a trench coat, a fedora, and a clearly fake mustache. "Ready for my big mission, Batman," he said, giving a thumbs up. Batman sighed. Robin was nervous. In the driver's seat next to Mildred, he went to adjust the rearview mirror. Trying to be cool, he flicked it with a little too much flair. "Improper mirror adjustment," Mildred stated flatly, stamping a large red failed on the form. "Lack of due care and attention." "Next," Robin stared in disbelief. "If you want something done right," Batman growled, marching toward the Batmobile, "you have to do it yourself." Alfred followed with a toolbox. "Indeed, sir. Shall I fetch the conventional hubcaps?" Work was painful. With a heavy heart, Batman carefully unscrewed the grappling hook launchers from the front grille. Each turn of the wrench felt like a defeat. Alfred, meanwhile, diligently polished a brand new, perfectly ordinary chrome hubcap before carefully fitting it onto the Batmobile's wheel. It looked utterly ridiculous. The final indignity came. Batman took a deep breath and placed a large fluorescent yellow student driver sticker on the Batmobile's rear armor plating. Batmobile was ready. The rocket boosters were gone, the armor plating was hidden by rubber bumpers, and it had a perfectly legal license plate. It looked like the world's most over-designed sedan. Bruce Wayne arrived at the DMV. He wore a slightly too small tweed jacket and thick glasses. It was a terrible disguise, doing little to hide his powerful jawline or the intensity in his eyes. He walked into the gray, soulless building. The air smelled of stale coffee and quiet desperation. This, he thought, was a kind of terror he had never faced before. "Mr. Wayne," a sharp voice cut through the silence. It was Mildred Thistlethwaite. She looked him up and down, her eyes lingering on the faint cowl marks around his eyes. "You're next." Mildred circled the depowered Batmobile, tapping a tire with the toe of her sensible shoe. "Unusual chassis," she noted. "What is the make and model of the vehicle?" Bruce Wayne's voice was a low growl. "It's a custom." Mildred made a small, disapproving sound and scribbled a note on her clipboard. "I see. Proceed to the parallel parking zone." This was the ultimate challenge. Not a gauntlet of fire or a villain's maze, but 2 orange cones on a stretch of asphalt. Mildred stood on the curb, clipboard at the ready, her expression unreadable. Inside the cockpit, Bruce ignored the mirrors. His tactical heads-up display, filled with trajectory lines, proximity alerts, and laser-guided distance measurements. He could park this vehicle on a dime from orbit. The Batmobile moved with the silent, slow precision of a predator. It slid backward, perfectly aligned. Then, with a faint tink, the rear bumper kissed the plastic cone. Mildred's pen came down on the clipboard like a guillotine. Automatic failure for use of unauthorized guidance systems. And you touched the cone. Defeated. The Batmobile was impounded on the spot. As Bruce sat in the driver's seat waiting for the tow truck, his eyes drifted to a small TV in the DMV waiting room. On the screen, the Joker was cackling, waving from the top of a bank vault, a city in chaos, and its protector was stuck in bureaucratic purgatory. Impounded? Batman's voice was a low growl that vibrated through the cave. Alfred, the Joker is tearing up downtown. Alfred, ever calm, gestured to a dusty corner. Contingency, sir. I took the liberty of acquiring a Plan B. There, under a top, sat the ugliest vehicle Batman had ever seen. A dented, faded yellow Gotham City taxi. Minor street legal enhancements, Alfred explained, pulling off the top. Reinforced tires, a modest nitrous oxide injector disguised as an air freshener. Batman stared at the pathetic vehicle. The springs squeaked when he pushed on the fender. "This is our weapon," he asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "This is how we stop the Joker." Alfred simply held out a set of keys. "This, sir, is our only available transportation." With a sigh that seemed to shake the very foundations of the cave, Batman squeezed his armored frame behind the wheel. His cape was bunched up, his utility belt dug into the worn vinyl seat, and his pointy ears scraped the ceiling. It was humiliating. He turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then roared to life with the sound of 1,000 angry hornets. With a screech of tires that was more sad than intimidating, the Gotham taxi shot out of the Batcave's hidden exit and into the night. The Joker's getaway car, a garish purple hot rod, weaved through traffic with gleeful abandon. Behind it, the yellow taxi lumbered, its horn bleeding pathetically. Onlookers stared, not in terror, but in utter confusion. The taxi handled like a sinking ship. The steering was loose, the brakes were soft, and it had the turning radius of a freight train. Batman couldn't rely on grappling hooks or rocket boosters. He had to drive. The Joker swerved down a narrow alley, a dead end. But Batman didn't slow down. He yanked the emergency brake, throwing the heavy taxi into a controlled, screeching drift. The car's sheer bulk was its only advantage. The Joker glanced in his rearview mirror, expecting to have lost his pursuer. His wide grin faltered when he saw the yellow clunker sliding perfectly around the corner, right on his tail. "Well, this is new," he cackled, slamming his foot on the accelerator. For the first time in years, Batman wasn't overpowering his opponent. He was outthinking them, outmaneuvering them. He used side streets he hadn't driven in a decade, predicting the Joker's every move based on traffic patterns and the city's layout. The Joker, seeking an open space for a final showdown, made a wild turn, straight into the Gotham DMV driving range. The neat rows of orange cones were now a chaotic mess of panicked henchmen, getaway vans, and bags of money as Batman skidded to a halt at the entrance. A strange sense of calm washed over him. The painted lanes, the stop signs, the panicked henchmen scattering like bowling pins. He wasn't just in a chase, he was on a test course. "The test isn't over," he muttered. He flicked on his turn signal. Click, 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 before expertly swerving around a terrified goon who was fumbling with a bag of cash. He treated the henchman like a poorly placed cone. From the window of the DMV office, Commissioner Mildred Thistlethwaite watched the chaos unfold. She saw the ridiculous taxi, but she also saw its impossible precision. It came to a perfect, complete stop at a stop sign before accelerating again. He drove into the three-point turn zone, boxing in one of the Joker's vans. He executed the maneuver flawlessly, his tires never touching the painted lines, trapping the vehicle between the taxi and a concrete barrier. The Joker, seeing his plan unraveling, jumped back into his hot rod. He threw it in reverse, aiming for the main exit. There was only one path out, a narrow space right behind him. He just had to back up and go. Mildred watched, her pen frozen above her clipboard. The yellow taxi was speeding in reverse, directly toward the Joker's only escape route. It was a reckless, impossible maneuver, but it wasn't reckless. It was perfect. With a single, fluid motion, Batman spun the wheel. The taxi slid backward, its tires kissing the curb without touching it, and came to a dead stop. The taxi's rear bumper was inches from the Joker's front bumper. It was a flawless, high-speed, reverse parallel park. The Joker's escape was completely cut off. Batman calmly switched off the ignition, the engine sputtering into silence. He opened the squeaky door and stepped out. The Joker was trapped, his henchmen were scattered, and the driving range was silent, except for the distant wail of police sirens. As Gotham PD swarmed the lot, cuffing a sputtering Joker and his crew, Batman simply stood by the taxi, its on-duty light still faintly glowing. He had won, but the fate of his driver's license was still uncertain. A figure walked calmly through the flashing lights and police tape. It was Commissioner Mildred Thistlethwaite. She ignored the handcuffed supervillain and the piles of money. Her eyes were fixed on one thing only. She walked to the back of the taxi, knelt down, and examined the distance between the tire and the curb. She measured it with her eye, then made a small, satisfied nod. She walked to the front and noted the perfect distance from the Joker's car. She stood up, looked at Batman, and then down at the form in her hand, the very one with the big red failed stamp. She uncapped her pen, crossed out a section, and wrote something new. Then, with a decisive thump, she brought down a different stamp. She showed him the form. Next to the original failure, she had written a new category: Extreme Conditions Maneuvers. Beside it, in crisp green ink, was a single word: pass. Without a word, Batman took the form, got back in his taxi, and drove away, a fully licensed driver at last. Mildred Thistlethwaite watched him go, a small, bewildered smile on her face.